Hello, everyone. How are you doing? So, after 2 weeks of multiple health screens and asking everyone to quarantine, I surprised my closest inner circle with a trip to a private island where we could pretend things are normal for just a brief moment in time and host this show before it goes off air for what, 2 months?
2 months? I think 2 months.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
This is your brand, your business, and we occasionally pop on to spend some time to talk about the business side of streaming.
And occasionally we pop off.
There you go. I'm Galen Herbst-Cortina, financial planner who works with streamers and shouts at them about business stuff. Ernest, can you tell us a bit about you?
You see here, kid, I'm Ernest Jones, and I'm
Nice.
a CPA to the stars.
Wow.
No, I'm Ernest Jones. I'm a CPA for broadcasters,
stars.
video game developers, and just anyone kind of in our industry. And Noah, that's your cue. Hit it.
Hi, I'm Noah Downs. I'm a lawyer, but I'm a cool lawyer. I'm a lawyer for the stars, if
Wow.
I'm earnest. But no, I do a lot of stuff. It's been a busy few weeks, as you can
Yeah,
tell.
any news in your world?
Yeah, music and Twitch has been just a blast lately. But I'm glad to be able to come back on Streamer Square. It's been a minute, guys. I missed y'all.
It has been, dude. Things have been crazy.
And just so everyone knows, but we were talking in the pre-show who was going to do the intro, and Galen was like, no, I'm definitely doing it. And we didn't know that he was going to hit the Kim Kardashian meme that's been circling Twitter. So if you aren't familiar, it's pretty good meme content.
He planned that. He definitely
He had
planned
it
that.
queued.
I did actually have Twitter up so that I could read off the script
Did you
for it because
really?
I don't have it memorized. Do you?
Yeah.
A true memer would have it memorized.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, this week, ignore these guys for now,
fair.
and then start listening to them again in like 30 seconds. So for this week, we wanted to take this last episode of the year to do a checklist. What is it that you should be doing towards the end of the year on the tax side, on the personal finance side, on the legal side to help you, keep shit orderly, keep everything together.
That's what we do.
Exactly.
We are the business janitors.
Basically.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's not the most optimistic way I've heard it put, but yeah, that feels about right. So this is, a lot of these things, if you've consistently watched our shows or even inconsistently, you'll have heard some of the stuff that we're going to go over because A, it always remains true, and B, this is sort of a summation of things you should make sure get done by end of year. We've got some general tips, then some tax stuff, then the personal finance stuff, and finally a bit on legal, because Noah's the one who needs the, hook
The
off
crook.
stage to put
The actual crook.
Yeah, exactly. Noah's the one who needs the crook, not the crook.
Yeah.
So first of all, Ernest, I know this one's near and dear to your heart. What's our first sort of general tip for what you can do year end to help you improve things?
It's not just a year-end tip, though.
It's a year-round tip.
It's a year-round tip. Answer your effing emails, broadcasters. Or just respond to stuff. Like, listen, set aside an hour a day, 30 minutes a day. Respond, go through your email.
Just like when you're going to the bathroom or something. I don't care. Like, find the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If it literally comes down to you saying LOL no and walking away to an email, that meme, then do it.
But literally, like if someone says to me, if I reach out to something and someone's response is no, not interested right now or something like that, great. That's way better than me having to be like, did they see that? Do I need to follow up with them? Are they aware that there's this potential, especially on some of the agency side stuff? Are they aware that there's this opportunity there? We've literally had clients say, yeah, my email got so overwhelming that I kind of didn't deal with it. And then the second I either dealt with it or got someone to help me deal with it, I found opportunities that I'd missed that would have paid for the cost of having someone help me with it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And just really
hating people on
Reds.
And not just answer your email, but also if you have a dedicated channel on Discord or something with your advisors, your relevant advisors, answer that. Now, this is where these two are going to pipe in and say, Noah, you never answer your Discord. I answer it for clients. And well, actually, that doesn't fit here either.
Yeah.
I answer it for
Let me look at my Discord where I have an information request to Noah, and let's see if it's been read.
Do as I say, not as I do.
That's fair.
Oh yeah, how goes the what was it, the LLC formation stuff? Or no, sorry, the Secretary of State stuff for the side thing that I was working on.
Oh
my God.
I'm joking.
Is it going great? I think it's going great.
So, first one, again, really take the time to get organized on the business side. If you have also a personal email, like as long as that's not the one you're using for business, fine, whatever. But you're really missing out on opportunities if you're not on top of your business email, because people still send stuff via email, if nothing else, just so that they can track it, right?
Yeah, I would actually say, just before we get too far away from that point, you should have a separate business and personal email. And if you don't have that set up, now's a great time to do it. And make sure that business email is in your bio.
Yep. I have 4 emails. I have one for personal, one for business, one for my administrative stuff and CPE. I have one for new clients that find me on my website.
Oh, wow. Really? Jeez,
Yep.
Wow. You have a dedicated one for new clients on your website?
Yeah, well, that find me through that. It goes to a separate email.
I got one for personal. I got one for personal that I actually read. I got
That's
work.
fair.
I got one for that's just Josh Belkin.
Noah at Josh Belkin.
I got one with my buddy Evan. That's just for Evan.
Yeah.
And then I don't have one for you guys. Do you guys want an email too?
No,
Sure.
Discord's fine. I have 2 plus a throwaway, like you were saying, the sign up for random thing where I don't want them harvesting info or whatever it is that I never look at.
Then I got a fantasy football one too.
Oh, fair enough.
One of the other things that we wanted to talk about, though, was I think we've all had this person come up to us at a con or email us out of the blue, and they're just getting started. They haven't even signed an affiliate deal or anything like that. And
this is the next tip for the record, not the email one.
Yeah, and they're wide-eyed, hopeful, and bushy-tailed, and they come up and they're like, "Hey, Noah, so I need an LLC. I'd like a contractor agreement for everything that we need. And I also would like you to kind of, have you retained to, review contracts for me." And Noah very kindly will say, "Okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your channel? Kind of like the pitch, like what are your numbers?" And they're like, "Oh, no, I haven't actually started streaming yet." And that's great. That's great to kind of be that forward looking.
Yep.
But if you don't actually have a channel yet, if you actually haven't hit go live yet, if you haven't actually, have started building a community, you're getting over your skis a little bit and you're getting kind of way ahead of it. So,
and not even you're getting over your skis. You haven't put your skis on.
Fair.
Like you have not put your skis on. You're not ready to go. I mean, sure. I love how forward-looking people are with that kind of thing of, hey, I need an LLC, I need contractor agreements for my emotes. All these things I'm going to talk about later. Spoiler, stay to the end. But in terms of coming up to me randomly at a con and saying, "Yo, I need all of this," great. I appreciate the enthusiasm. You're not there yet. If you have the disposable cash to prep it, sure, but most people don't.
Yeah, if you've got a mere $1 million loan from your father and you unironically play Fortunate Son without realizing what it means, then sure, spend the cash because it doesn't really matter at that point.
No, but I played the cover. It's fine.
For most of us, Ernest didn't see the news. But if you're most of us, there is a balance to strike between getting these things that we're talking about set up and going well and actually needing them functionally.
And we talked about risk exposure, right? Clearly we're going to tell you this is the worst case scenario if this all blows up on you. But there's a difference if you have, 0 viewers and haven't built a community yet, or you have 5,000 concurrents, have 2,500 subs, you're doing SpawnCon and all this other stuff and activations, and you're going, there's just a different kind of risk threshold that you have to evaluate. Mm-hmm. Your risks are still the same. Your risks are still the same, that you cannot play Fortunate Son, cover or not. You can't do any of the things that a 5,000 person also should not be doing.
Right.
But your risk is lower because you are not as exposed.
They have a lot further to fall.
Yes.
Now, that said, when it comes to copyrighted music, there's statutory penalties for infringing copyright. So that said, if you have 0 assets, then what are they going to collect against?
Exactly. So that's the general stuff we wanted to talk about.
Let me ask you this, and going to number 3. What are some of the things we should be looking at tax-wise, Ernest, going into the end of the year?
So basically I'm going to kind of hit the things real quickly. do your year-end tax planning. If you owe tax last year, do an evaluation. Am I up this year? Am I down this year?
For earned income, which relates to taxes.
Right. So have I made my quarterlies? Do I want to make quarterlies? Have I set aside tax?
So what, and maybe this is something that people need to schedule and talk to you about. How do you make the decision about, quarterlies versus not?
That's a little bit into Galen's as well, but I think you need to evaluate what your emergency funds are at, what you kind of feel comfortable with, what your short-term and long-term obligations are. Do you have a family member that's been laid off? Are you helping support what's going on in the household? Now,
is it still 6%-ish for the late fees?
It's
annualized.
Yeah. It's not too punitive. So I told the story a lot to clients. I routinely have a client that owes anywhere from 30 to 50,000 in tax every year. And we sit down and say, hey, do you want to do quarterlies? How do you want to approach this? And they say no. They'd rather, pay the penalty, have the cash available to them, put it to work for them. And they are always fully paid in April 15th, this year, July 15th. So to answer that question, of course, it depends. Given the uncertainty with where we are in the year and what people's own familial commitments may be, I would say less people have made quarterlies this year, and that's fine as long. Disclaimer.
I can say I didn't for the first 2 quarters because we didn't know what the hell things were going to look like, so we held on to cash.
Yeah, we
decided that it was worth a 6%-ish penalty potentially to have the cash on hand in case whatever the hell happened.
And there's some argument you could potentially argue reasonable cause for not making quarterlies. I don't know how well that's going to go. And to tell you kind of a little bit how the sausage is made, Galen and I had a tax planning meeting. And basically, I do those exact questions. I ask, okay, how's the year shaping up? What do we have going on? What life events do we have? This is where I'm projecting you to be. Do you want to make a quarterly? There's no right answer for that. As the key thing is you want to be paid in by April 15th, because once you get past that deadline and you haven't paid, the interest and penalties really start ramping up.
And I'll say sort of general guidelines wise, if you're in a position where you have the cash on hand and can afford to pay the quarterlies and have enough left over for an emergency fund, and you're someone where taxes stress you out or it's something that you dread every year, then I think it makes sense to pay those quarterlies so that you're getting a smaller hit each time. It's not one, and this is just an example, it's not one $20,000 bills, it's $4,000 or $5,000 bills, right? Like that, just
it's a lot more digestible.
Exactly. The way that we operate mentally, most of us, it's less painful to see those occasional smaller hits as opposed to the one massive one.
It's kind of like putting something on a payment plan. And in fact, it is putting something on a payment
plan. It literally is. I mean, which is what you're doing with a pay stub too.
Yeah.
So yeah, year-end tax and figuring out what you need to do there, Ernest. Which also, I mean, year-end tax planning also involves, I think, a couple pieces that we talk about a lot that you said are like as a part of this, but it's also knowing what you earned and knowing what you spent in the business, right? Yeah. Those are both big pieces and both things that you should take some time by year end to both account for that this year, figure out the numbers for this year so that you can do this kind of planning. So that's A. And then B is set up systems to make it easier to get this kind of stuff done in the future. So that's the things that we've talked about before, like getting separate business banking set up, setting up, pointing all your business income towards that, getting a credit card that you can use just for the business, all of these things that...
And there's legal reasons for doing that too.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that your business financial structure is in place, because if you don't, for example, keep a separate business bank account, then there's a chance that somebody, if you get sued, could pierce the corporate veil, which would get rid of the limited liability shield that you have from an LLC. So yeah, no, you totally should be setting all that up.
So if you get caught filming in a bathroom and you don't have this kind of thing set up separately and someone sues you for it, they could come after everything and not just what you have in the business.
Exactly. And the last thing you want is somebody going after your house, or if you don't have a house, your car, or if you don't have a car, your PC.
Or, basically slapping a levy on you forever. right? Like, look, you're young. Most broadcasters skew younger on the age scale. Look, we're going to have a judgment against you, and over time, you're going to pay us.
Right.
Right? That's not uncommon, right, Noah? Like, I'm not going out on a limb there. So
no, and in fact, back in a former life, I enforced garnishments, and it is not fun for anybody.
Yeah, basically, Noah in another life was a legal repo man. Not a denial. So anyway, moving on.
That's accurate.
Going through, so I'm just going to hit the questions that I do go over on a client when I do a year-end tax planning.
Mm-hmm.
After small talk, how you doing? Blah blah blah. All right. What do we expect our projected gross revenue for 2020 to be? All right. So you made X amount in last year as a reference point. Was it a better or worse year? Second question. Expenses were, why, 100,000, 50,000, 40,000 in 2019. Did you spend more? Did you do new systems? Obviously, you didn't travel as much. Maybe you did. I don't know.
My expenses went up because even though I didn't spend the $10,000 a year on travel like I normally spend going to cons and shit, I hired someone, and that's even more expensive.
And maybe you hired contractors, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I started a new hobby of woodworking.
That's pretty cool.
Your question.
You didn't know what to do with that.
No. There's a question in chat. So
I was reading.
This is kind of like our AMA. We'll get the questions at the end too. So feel free to have them flagged or put them in chat, and we'll get to them at the end. And then I also ask, hey, are we doing tax structure? Earlier in the year, I may have had a question about an LLC, right? And so, are we doing more tax structure? Are we making an S election? If we're making an S election, hey, are we ready to run payroll and all these other things? I would say, and this is professional opinion, and I'm going to kind of brag a little bit. This is after 15 years. I don't think there's any client that I've dealt with that can fully do the S corporation, filing themselves and do the payroll. It's not that it's complicated. It's they don't see the full picture. They may get 60 or 70% of the way, but they don't do it correctly enough to actually make it meaningful savings.
I can't do that without your help.
Yeah, I mean, I there's things that Galen and Noah can do that I can't do, right? I can kind of say, I think this is what it is, but you should talk to a professional in that field. So if you are at that point, you should not be doing it yourself. It's just full stop, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So we transition out because we got hotfix coming up soon at the top of the hour.
At the top of the hour.
Yeah, that's my radio voice. So Galen.
Oh, what is hotfix doing today? I missed that.
They're doing the rise of politics on Twitch. So
that should be perfect for Lucid.
It's really weird because I can't think of anything in current events that makes that a relevant topic. But
why are we talking about politics?
Why are you talking about politics? But Galen, so on the financial year-end review, you put together a profit and loss. Now,
we talked about that a bit.
We did, but I'm sure at this point, though, all broadcasters have their financial house in order and could tell you right now what they've made. Here.
Totally. I actually do have some clients who totally can because they're either super awesome at it, they have a spouse who's super awesome at it, or they've outsourced it. Those are the 3 times basically that I've seen that. And I will say most people aren't super awesome at it because it's something that takes specific both training at some level and giving a shit about at some level. And I don't mean that as a bad thing, but I mean that as it can be kind of boring to do unless you're into it.
If you're a successful creator, it's not your skill set.
No, exactly.
And also,
generally not.
You might just not have time.
Yeah, exactly. So that profit and loss piece again is everything that you earned in the business from basically any avenue, and then everything that you spent for the business. And we've talked about some of these before, but really make sure you take the time to look at what are the things that I can write off through the business. Personally, for mine, since I work from home and I work with broadcasters, we write off essentially all of my internet because I'm doing Zoom calls all day, chunk of electricity and other utilities. My home office, because I work with you guys, I write off subs. Because I work with you guys, I write off video games that I buy, which is just phenomenal.
It's amazing.
I love that. That is one of my favorite perks from all this.
Oh, wow. You played Among Us with a bunch of clients, and that's a marketing expense? Wow, tell me more.
Listen, just the fact that I can...
Game Pass?
Game Pass, exactly. Just the fact that I can talk coherently about how much I love the game Hades with my clients who also are obsessed with roguelikes is great.
Yo, Taffy's been playing Hades so much, and I can't look away.
It's so good, dude. It's so good.
Mhm.
And I'm known for liking roguelikes. So that's not a surprise, but it's so good. And it's just I've done a bunch of runs and beaten it several times, and there's still more every single time, like new things. It's so good. So look at all the things that you can write off. So not just on the profit side, what you earn, but also what are the things that you that are ordinary necessary for running your business.
Right.
And if you don't have a ready-made template that you already use for this kind of stuff, you can get one in Google Sheets, or you can just look around for free resources. Like, there are a million different ways that you can do this. At its most basic level, it should just be totals. But
now my question for you is, and this probably for both of you, when you're looking at profits and losses, are you also including on your profit side in-kind things you receive for campaigns, such as PCs and keyboards,
or the
and
Xbox
also
that everyone's been tweeting about today?
On the flip side, are you do you show losses on existing materials as they degenerate?
I'll say I can let Ernest talk about the depreciation piece, but you definitely should be accounting for things that you received, even if they're not cash, things that you received that you wouldn't have if you weren't operating your business. So like everyone who just got the early Xbox today should be reporting that as in-kind income, because that Xbox has a dollar value, right?
What's nice about it, though, is the tax impact is nil, because you are putting that thing that you receive to work for your stream, in theory. So in other words, I get a chair. I saw some people got like the Herman Miller Logitech chair, right? Mm-hmm. Very nice chair. Not sponsored.
Yeah.
Hashtag yet.
You noticed by my lazy boy office chair.
They're great.
How about this St. Jude chair?
Nice.
But what happens is that chair's $300, $400, $500, whatever. And you pick that up on your revenue side, but then it goes to work in your broadcast. Well, that's a $500 expense, right? Because it's getting used as part of it. So it's tax neutral, but you still need to report it.
Right. Exactly.
On the depreciation side, from what I've seen, very rarely is a broadcaster having to depreciate an asset, unless it's like a car or something, because when it's a PC, there are individual component parts that are not insignificant, but not significant enough to warrant depreciation.
Basically, there's a splitting point where what depreciation is writing off a portion of the value of something over time. So if you owned a rental property for 20 years, each year you would write off, on the set schedule, a portion of that, because it's theoretically you're using up some of the value of it, which is bullshit with rental properties most of the time, but whatever. That's how the tax code works.
Galen, you don't like our tax code? How dare you? Those are fighting words.
Stop.
Outside, Chief.
Stop. Not this show. Not this show.
But
stay on the rails.
Yes, on Prop 15. But for a lot of things that are just not that expensive, you just write them all off in 1 year, right? And by not that expensive, I mean on the business scale. So like, my uncle who owns some restaurants might buy like something for the kitchen that costs $100,000, that you depreciate. You buying even like a $2,000-$3,000 PC, that you can pretty much like expense, which is all put in 1 year. The only reason you might do it differently is if you're working with someone like Ernest and you have really strong reason to believe that you would benefit more in future years from that expense than current ones. But that's like a really niche case.
Yeah.
Your baby's crying, so sorry.
So I want to move it along, Galen. So what are you doing right now with clients, and what's something that's important coming up in your bugaboo this time of year?
Health insurance open enrollment if you're in the U.S. It's the worst.
Health insurance.
And the reason this is important, and Galen, I'll give you time to wax poetic, is that, number one, if you are a full-time broadcaster, it means you are kind of what I would deem a working entertainer, right? Doesn't mean you're doing like gangbuster type income, but you need health insurance to manage significant downside risk. And that's your cue, Galen. Go. Hit them with it.
Get them.
Health insurance in our country
is great.
Damn you, Morag. But in our country, health insurance sucks. And we do a terrible job of it. But you still have to deal with the cards that you're dealt. So even though health insurance is expensive and often doesn't cover a bunch, what you don't what you want to avoid at a bare minimum is the disaster scenario. Say, theoretically, there's a global pandemic and people are being kind of irresponsible about it. You get sick, potentially get hospitalized for a couple weeks. That ain't cheap. Say you're sitting at your desk streaming, and boy, streaming's a stressful career, and boy, you like have been meaning to like get up and stretch every hour, but you haven't been doing that for a while because you're busy and blah blah blah. Heart attack, right? Like,
well, I mean,
that shit's expensive.
Somebody in Virginia Beach, a streamer in Virginia Beach, tried to do a 24-hour stream and died.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
health insurance doesn't help with death, but
but it highlights other health issues.
Yes. So November 1st to December 15th are health insurance open enrollment in the United States. That is the only time of year you can buy health insurance when you're self-employed, with some small exceptions for life events like having a kid, getting married, losing coverage through a job, or moving far enough away that your current insurance couldn't cover you. So you want to get at least enough coverage so that if you were hospitalized for a couple days, even because it's all it takes is a couple days, your expenses are capped, and that could be like capped at $8,000. I'm not saying cheap, but it's not $100,000.
And to be clear, a GoFundMe is not health insurance,
and a GoFundMe is also income.
And unfortunately, we've all had clients, both recently and long term, where they didn't get the insurance and like find a way. I mean, it's easy to say, like, find a way to make it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If you're not earning enough money to pay for health insurance premiums, there are credits to help you with it. If you're earning less than $40,000 a year, your health insurance in most states is basically free. And by free, I mean fully subsidized, not free, but meaning that you're just basically
free.
Yeah, and the thing about it is like
NBA playoffs.
It's very easy to say like you need to like pay this expense that you may not be able to utilize, but it's just raw numbers. Like if something catastrophic happens, it's not going to be good, and it's going to be financially ruinous and potentially health ruinous for you. So
I love Morag's no priors for the US. So Morag, two things to say there. One is Salty Sparks is right, probably $250 to $300 a month. A. B, if you're 20 to 35. B is if you're under 26, you can stay on your parents' health insurance. So if your parents have health insurance, you can just do that. But yeah, a couple $100 a month. But it's a couple $100 a month, again, to not get blown up. Now, of course, it gets much more expensive for us, where it's me and my wife and a kid. If we weren't getting it through my wife's, we're already paying like $600 a month for it, and that's with her company covering like I think all of her cost.
My wife being a teacher, we have super nice benefits there, but teaching in 2020 in person comes with its own
and the
issues.
Salary offset and stuff like that. Anyway, So this is one checklist item for sure. If you're in the US and streaming is what you do for a living, get health insurance, even if it's the shittiest thing out there.
And when does that enrollment start again?
November 1st, which is Sunday, and it goes through December 15th. It's a painful process. It's not super well done in terms of like how you access it and stuff like that, but it's much better than losing everything because of even a potentially unforeseen thing, right? Like you could be perfectly healthy, work out every day, have no family history of anything, and still get hit by a car.
Life happens. And the big takeaways I would say is, everyone should try their best to get it. But specifically, if you are a single, young, full-time broadcaster, like it's not something you want to plan for, but you should do it.
Get the cheapest thing you can find then, right? Like
while you're at it, also think about your disability insurance for your hands.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's the big one, is like sort of at least time sensitive around year end. In terms of other sort of just general financial, both for the business and for yourself, we talked about this a bit with Ernest, but as a part of doing that, year end tax planning, putting together your profit and loss, one thing you should figure out is whether or not you should accelerate expenses into this year or defer them into next year. So as a part of what you're doing, you should look at Does it look like I'll earn more income this year versus next year? Hard to know as a streamer, but you can make educated guesses, right?
Yeah, certainly, you saw a sub count spike in June or August or something, then, I've seen there's a general like sub.
Hell, Destiny did that thing, right? Where Destiny did that sponsored sub to this streamer, get potential perks in games, where people saw their sub counts spiking into 5 figures when they normally have low 4-figure sub counts at most, right? Like,
and there's going to be obviously a retraction there because there's a promo tied with it. But at the same time, from my experiences, you never see the retraction down to the old level.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a spike up and then it goes back down to kind of a newish normal.
Yeah. But what is this? What's to say there is take some of the time to figure out, like we're saying, that year-end tax planning, those projections, and then figure out, does it make sense to spend money in this year to help lower my taxes, or does it make sense to defer expenses in the next year to help lower next year's taxes?
Right.
As a business owner, that's something that you have some level of control of. You don't have full control over it, right? Your subs to other streamers happen every month, regardless of if you want to say sub to someone, regardless of your timing. But if you're looking at, if you earned $30,000 this year, but 20 of that $30,000 happened in the last 2 months of the year because you blew up, you have good reason to suspect that next year you'll earn more money. Maybe It makes sense to defer that new PC purchase until January 1st, right? Because that you'll get a bigger benefit from that tax deduction next year. So that's one thing to look at. It's one of those things that is a kind of an edge case, but it's an edge case that can be worth a couple $100 or $1,000 depending on your scenario.
Right.
Another thing is, if streaming isn't your full-time thing, you want to look at, when you want to make sure that you're taking a really good look at your potential employee benefits package from where you're working right now. That's something that we're going through with a lot of clients. Most companies have open enrollment periods in either October or November. Yep. And there are sometimes a lot of fringe benefits that you might not be aware of if you don't read the whole package available to you. If you just say, like, yeah, continue what we had last year, like, that's not the worst thing in the world, but you do want to make sure that you're going through and seeing, were there any new benefits added? We just had a client, who had a change where, because of a change in company policy, a benefit that they didn't used to use because they were using a spouse's benefits package suddenly made much more sense for them to use.
Right.
So that's a good thing to do. When it comes to the last sort of, like, before I get into like the planning side of it, the last thing to look at when it comes to year-end income stuff is, if it's relevant, if does it make sense for you to do things like convert traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs because you had a low income year, or does it make sense to shove some money into a retirement account again because you had a really good year, and some of those have year-end deadlines.
Short-term financial commitment, so it just makes sense.
Yep.
Instead of letting it sit in bank accounts, which it's not doing anything for you.
Right. Most bank accounts are getting functionally no interest.
All right, Galen, give me a good solid 3 minutes on your goal setting.
Yep.
What you need to be doing.
So you want to be doing both business. Yeah, sorry, I'm probably running out of time, aren't I? You want to be doing business planning, where you're both looking at the goals for the business. What are the things that you want to achieve the next year? What are theoretical conferences that you might want to go to? What are events that you want to put on with your community? Even if it's impossible to know the future, even if you don't have the ability to see every single thing that you might do, doing some level of goal setting is a helpful introspective exercise that helps you better identify what it is that you want. So even if you don't have full control over getting there, you can at least take some of the steps that help move you in that direction. You also, on the business side, want to look at outsourcing planning, by which I mean, what are the things that you don't need to be doing to keep your business finances and your personal finances running? I've had clients,
or personal assistant.
Exactly. All the roles that we talked about on the last show, what of those can you hand off to someone else at a reasonable rate? I have some clients who have hired bookkeepers on my recommendations, and now literally all that they do, because they followed our advice and got everything set up, literally all that they do is go hand us the already prepared documents, and that's it. And then we can tell them what to do on their taxes. They don't have to spend a day and a year going through statements and shit like that. Like, find out those kinds of things that you can outsource that will be the biggest impact on you. What are the things that are the most important to do that you hate doing the most?
God, nope. So we got 12 minutes before.
Okay, 12 minutes. No, you've got it. Go.
Yeah,
All right,
it's Noah time.
Time, Noah. So I'm going to cue you up. So is this, you put this in here, is this number one bullet that they should be doing at year end, looking at all their contracts and getting on?
Yes, actually, right now, and this is super important because of what's going on in the industry. You need to know what rights you have. So there's three main things I want to talk about. One is your contract reviews, making sure that you have contracts in place, because contracts save friendships. Contracts also help you potentially on the tax side. If you misclassified somebody as an independent contractor that actually needs to be an employee, you need to make sure that your contract allows for recovery of certain benefits you might have to pay to them. You need to make sure that you're taking care of your LLC. You need to make sure that your channel is DMCA approved as much as it can be right now. So let me talk a little bit about LLCs first, and then I'll hop into the other thing. First of all, every year you need to make sure that your LLC is in good standing. Sometimes LLCs fall out of good standing because somebody missed something. That happens. You need to make sure you file an annual report. If you are a little bit late, sure, there's a small fine typically, but you need to make sure that you pay that fine before it falls and lapses, and you have to just refile the whole LLC, because there's legal ramifications to that too. If your LLC falls out of good standing, if your LLC is dissolved, then you can have some serious issues if you are sued, if you have other, if you have potential serious issues on the tax side too, if your LLC doesn't exist anymore. So when you have an LLC in good standing, what does that mean? One, is your personal address public? Is your real name public? Is your LLC good and paid? Is your LLC actually in the state that you're in, or did you just randomly file in Delaware because the internet told you to?
Or Wyoming. I've seen a lot of traction in Wyoming recently, Noah.
Yeah, exactly.
Blue sky
Wyoming.
State, blue sky laws, right?
Yeah,
totally makes sense.
Doesn't matter, because you need to register your unless a lawyer tells you not to, file your company in the state where you're at, because otherwise you're most likely going to need to file in not only in the state where you formed it, but also a foreign entity registration in the state that you're at, which doubles your liability, doubles your costs, because you have to pay to both states. So make sure your LLC is in good standing. If you have moved over the course of the last year, for example, if you move from California to Texas, you need to move your LLC. There's a process to do that. You can domesticate your LLC from California to Texas, vice versa.
Some states don't allow domestication, so you've got
some states don't. Yeah, some states don't. So yeah, there's 27 states that do. There are math states that don't. 23. I'm good at math.
Wow, you're incredible.
So then, like I said, you want to make sure you have contracts in place. So these contracts are with your mods. Potentially, you've had a great year. You want to go ahead and hire your mods. Well, you don't want to just give people money. Don't ever just give people money. If you're giving people money, you need to have a contract with that person. Never just give people money. So you want to make sure you have contracts prepared for those people. In addition, if you're going to be having new emotes, new overlays, etc., anytime somebody's creating something for you,
what's the clause you want when you have an artist and you've hired them to make an emote?
Typically, you're looking for a work for hire clause or an assignment. Occasionally, you find an artist that is just too proud of their work and they don't do that. So you need to make sure you have an irrevocable license.
What does it mean? It's work for hire? Because what happens if I don't have it? What can that artist do to me?
So if I'm getting there,
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thanks for the layup. What I would say is, when you don't have a contract with your artist, if they at any point decide they don't like you, they can DMCA your content. So like, you've got that emote out there, and Joe down the street made that emote for you, and you paid Joe $500, but you don't have paper with him. He's the author of that work under copyright law, in which case he can submit a takedown if he decides to revoke your right to use that emote, and that can cause problems for your channel, especially now when DMCA is running rampant. So make sure you have the rights contract or the rights to use your emotes, your overlays, your music, your alerts, your visual alerts both visual and auditory. Go through and make sure that your channel is proofed and
What
good
about
to
my
go.
taste alerts?
What about your what?
Dumb joke. You said auditory and visual. I was like doing other senses.
Okay, and your touch alerts too.
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah, smell and vision. And so what I would say is go through, and if you don't know how to do this, contact a lawyer who does. Because right now Twitch is a war zone when it comes to the DMCA. I don't know if you guys know that. So I did that in 8
That
minutes.
was pretty good.
Pretty good. You're not. So one thing I want to say, Noah, we've talked about it. We did a whole kind of show. But can you give me the bullet points on things you should be looking for in contracts, whether it's the renewal rate, when you have to give notice, kind of those quick hits, just bullet points, things you should be scanning a contract for?
So broadcasters typically, and can somebody drop the disclaimer in chat as well? So broadcasters typically need to be looking for likeness rights in their contracts, making sure they're not giving away a company the right to use their likeness, cut it up, make them say, "Hail Satan" or whatever. Because if you are doing work for someone, they're going to get some sort of right to what you're doing for them. However, you do not want just to give it to them wholesale. You want to make sure that you don't have a
you don't want to sign some sort of sponsorship deal,
right?
Have the right to your likeness and can repackage it in any way, shape, or form.
You also want to know, for example, if the person who is hiring you is authorized to do so. That's one that most people actually overlook all the time. Does this person actually work for G Fuel, or are they just saying they do? You want to make sure
with the key mailer, right? That didn't actually have keys to that game.
That's all
exactly.
And also what Noah's getting into, that's like a fun kind of scholarly, like legal, like, did this person have agency? Did you have, actual good faith to believe that they had agency? What were they doing to
Ugh, you're taking me back to my MBA classes. No, thank you. My contract classes. Ugh.
And also, like, if somebody's reaching out and securing employment on your behalf and acting as a talent agent, you need to make sure that they're licensed to do so, especially if you're in California or they're in California.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big issue recently. So
also, because I could hear like Noah needs a breath. Also, like, number one thing is, hey, when are they going to pay me? Is it net 15, net 30, net 45, net 60? Do I, as a creator,
and net of what?
Start that clock?
And who invoices exactly, and what does the form of the invoice have to be? We've gotten to the point where these companies now are saying your invoice has to be substantially in this form, otherwise we're not going to honor it.
Yep.
You also need to make sure that you're not giving rights to your trademark logos, etc., that you don't want to give. Basically, there's a lot more people in the space, and not many of them know how to properly write a contract. So going through your contracts, not just signing things willy-nilly, is extremely important right now.
And we always say, look, you may be at the point where you don't feel comfortable talking to a lawyer, paying them. Most lawyers know, you do free consults, right?
Yes. So, and I offer free 30-minute consults to people who have questions about this stuff. In those consults, I go over what I can do for you if you need legal help. Sometimes we walk away saying, you're good, fam. But yeah, most lawyers in this space will offer you a free consult. If they don't offer you a free consult, then they haven't been in this industry long enough to do good by you.
And the other thing too is, where I think we are as an industry at this point is, if you are just starting, you likely have a friend or someone who's been doing it longer. You've networked. We've always recommended that. And so as part of that, you probably have someone you can lean on and be like, look, hey, I got this contract. Can you look at this for me as a friend? And like, what should I be looking out for? Or you have someone in your life that can do that, right? So it may not be an attorney, but it may be someone, at least they're not giving legal advice to be 100%.
That's the key.
They're not. But a quote unquote standard sponsorship thing, if you know someone who's seen a lot of them and has been through some stuff and had a career, or, they can at least get you some part of the way there.
Right. They're
talking to an attorney. But sorry, go ahead, Noah.
There's no substitute for going out and actually having an attorney review stuff, because we're trained to think the ways that you aren't.
That's literally true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I am trained to find the doom in every contract. And so I've had clients come to me and say, I signed this. I thought it looked good. You think I'm not? And then I find 7 things wrong. And they're like, I didn't even think of that. Well, that's because that's literally my job, y'all.
We can all watch a YouTube video on how to texture a wall or paint a wall or whatever. However, if I hire a contractor who basically every day does that and hangs drywall and does the seams on everything, it's going to look a lot better than idiot accountant over here being like, I think this is right, and like looking on my phone like for the tutorial. So
yeah, for example, I was reviewing something, and I actually got permission to say this on stream today. I was reviewing a contract today where it literally said work will not commence until the contract has been received and signed by both the client and the contracting party. And most people think, okay, that's great. Nobody's going to start work. Now, what if I actually said in the event that my client accepts the contract, work will not commence, because I don't want my client to accidentally enter into any agreement or be contracted to work with someone else before that. Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So that's pretty good. We're at 10
right at time.
Top of the hour. Anything else? Noah or Galen, you guys want to hit on as like big tips before we get to a couple questions?
Get an LLC, review your contracts, hire a lawyer, hire everybody on this channel.
My question to Noah would be, what would be the implications of Ernest covering Will Shan's parody of YMCA that relates to DMCA? Because have you seen that tweet? It's amazing.
It is amazing. I'm thinking through it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it on this channel.
No, I know. I'll actually, so we've avoided kind of the big elephant in the room. Do you want to talk briefly, if you can, or do you think it's better just postpone that to another? Or actually, Noah, give a teaser, and then why don't you talk about what you're doing tomorrow? There you go. There you go.
So basically, everybody knows that the DMCA in music and the RIAA and the music industry have been really cracking down hard on Twitch. And that's a problem. And a lot of people just went through and deleted a bunch of their clips and VODs. And right now, if you think you might have content you don't have the license to use in any of your past clips or VODs, you need to delete them. And if you are utilizing any content you don't have the rights to in your stream, aside from the game, which is a whole different story, you need to not do that. You need to mute those alerts, use ones you do have the rights to. I've been invited, and I'm thrilled to say that I'm going to be going on the May Contain Action podcast tomorrow at 6 p.m. With Trevor May and Action Jackson to talk more about the DMCA and what's going on Twitch.
So I'm going to try to turn Noah a little red. Do you think it would be uncouth or out of sorts to ask Trevor May that if he contracted COVID, would he run out into the middle of the field to celebrate with his friends after winning the World Series?
I already have it written down to ask him.
Wonderful. Listen,
I tweeted this today, but that bastard, that's the first time the Dodgers have won the World Series since the year I was born.
Yeah.
And that bastard had to go and leech a little bit of pleasure from most of the sane people who were trying to celebrate that victory.
2020, anything enjoyable is not as enjoyable as you want.
This is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. So definitely check that out. What time is that?
That's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll have a link on my Twitter.
So make sure everyone here who's listening, go there, troll Noah. I'm going to be there in chat trying to bug him and trying to steal some clout from him.
Of course.
All right. So, we're at 152. Let's get to those couple of questions. So JD asked in chat, question to Ernest regarding donations to various charity streams from COVID and taxes. Is it deductible or just a de minimis goodwill? I would say, there's this thing, and when Josh was on the show, he talked about it. His number one pet peeve is broadcasters calling tips donos or donations.
Yeah.
To be tax deductible, it has to be to a qualified 501c3 not for profit. So typically you can find that on their website. You can look them up on GuideStar to determine that. Charitable deductions get treated differently for tax purposes, so it's not technically a business expense. As we talked about this ad nauseum, although I don't think we've played this old chestnut recently, you should not ever be taking in charity funds if you're doing a charity stream. You should use Tiltify or one of the other wonderful, my brain's melting. I can't remember the other platforms, but basically you should set it up where you are routing all of the money directly to the charity. And then I think who put in the question about depreciation? Is that you, Galen?
No, I added it to our little Google Doc. Yeah, but that was from, well, Salty mentioned it, and then I think Pixel Pete also mentioned it.
So with TICJA, that's moved up a little bit, where if you can, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that's the new tax, Galen gave me the side eye, the new tax law we're living in. Specifically, if you are able to identify the component parts and assign a value to them, that lowers it. So Galen earlier said if you buy a $2,000 or $3,000 PC, do you have to depreciate that because it's significant in nature? Typically, my benchmark is if you're putting together a financial is 2,000 or less. But here's the trick. You can identify the processor. You can identify the big, thick, like 3090 that you've jammed in there. That I don't understand how that fits in like a mid-tower case.
You'd like need to get a new case for it, right?
Crazy. And so you identify those component parts, and all of them are going to be less than 2,000 in when itemized. So that's why you expense them. Grid, I still have a 980 Ti. I'm in desperate need to like redo my whole setup, and so I might be doing that this holiday season.
The question was around if someone's doing St. Jude Play Live and you donate. Was the question? I mean, there it comes down to do you itemize, basically.
Oh, Reenie's yelling at us.
Oh no, do we have to get off?
Yeah, well, it is that time. So, Noah, pump your thing tomorrow and tell people who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, my name's Noah Downs. You can follow me on Twitter at my lawyer friend. You can follow me on Twitch at my lawyer friend. You can also see me on the May Contain Action Pod, hosted by Trevor May and Action Jackson tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Pay attention to the aforementioned Twitter for more information.
We need to fix that command, but there's my info in Ernest's. If you want to find us, Twitter's pretty good for it.
I am Ernest Jones. I'm a CPA. I do taxes for broadcasters, game developers, everyone else. Find me on Twitter. I'm around. And Galen, last show, great year, 2020.
Woo, we did it.
Woo, we did it.
Hey, Galen, quick outro. Did you do yours already?
No, but I'm fine. I'm Galen Herbst Cortina. There's my Twitter. Find me there. That's where I am. I spend way too much time there.
Right, everybody.
I will let Morag do it.
In 2021. Bye.
Don't